okay, finally it's draw, let's exchange everything. And then that second, he fell apart.
Yeah, certainly. And David, are you equally excited by this encounter?
Yes, for sure. We saw the handshake there. Hikaru means business. Often it is about how you start in the tournament, and as I mentioned earlier, Hikaru, he's the type of player who can get on a roll. But Firouzja, of course, will be aiming to attack. The white pieces for him, I think, are actually essential, not just in the Blitz tournament, but the Classical. He's so strong with white every time I see Firouzja play. So Hikaru here, I think he'll be happy to just get out of the opening with a solid position. Actually, looking very relaxed, Hikaru.
I think he loves to play Blitz. And of course, he loves to win, which he did just in the previous round. But you don't see him nervous. Did you ever see him really nervous? I mean, look at he's focused, concentrated.
Yeah.
And the handshake, and the players are off, and Firouzja opening with the king's pawn. And will Hikaru employ his trademark Berlin? Oh, yeah, I'm very happy.
Not the boring one.
I'm very happy to see there's no 13 move repetition there.
Yeah, Firouzja going against, or maybe what some people were fearing at home. I know here in the studio we thought, oh, Berlin, not a good sign for a fighting game, but this one is very tense. Most pieces still on the board, only a trade of one set of pawns so far. And if I recall correctly, Firouzja has been employing this opening, or this specific variation against the Berlin a lot in recent times. So has Hikaru done his homework? Looks very symmetrical, Judith.
It is very symmetrical, and the bishop on c5 is extremely powerful. Now, knight b8 is something, a nice regrouping of the knight. Eventually, it wants to go to d7 after c6 or without c6. Rook goes from f8 to e8 or d8, knight f8, knight g6 or e6 possibly. But also it was important for black, I guess, to go away from the bishop from b5 to be exchanged. And it's very typical what white is going to knight f1, also trying to get to g3, possibly to f5. It's important for black that he played a5, so b4, gaining space is not possible from white side. Now I would think bishop g4. I would like to play it with black.
What is white pinning their hopes on for? Because to my mind, and I'm not so experienced with these type of positions, it just looks equal. I mean, okay, once black has completed their development, and there we can see the knight is actually targeting the f2 pawn, and, well, Hikaru is just initiating a set of trades.
Hikaru is so good in these types of positions, I've got to say, even when it looks like there's nothing going on, he's so good at just sensing the tempo. I was fearful for black. I thought symmetrical, but white is 2 or 3 moves ahead. Suddenly, black starts the attack, attacking this f2 pawn. He gets time to develop his bishop. There's going to be a bishop trade, and no problems at all that I foresee for black here.
Well, anything can happen in these positions, I believe. White is going to be exchanging on e6, then he goes h3, then he comes with the knight to e3, I believe, or, well, without h3. But f5 square, don't underestimate it from white side. I like to have my knight on f5 in these kind of structures. Eventually he's going to play b3, bishop b2, or bishop d2 and b4, bringing the other rook. It's a slow maneuvering part. Of course, in these positions, the d3 square can be vulnerable and weakness for white. So it will be interesting how black will develop the knight from b8 through d7 to whether he's going to be moving away the bishop and to locate the knight on c5. But the knight is on f5, and the h6 pawn can be captured, sacrificed by the bishop sometimes.
And there we can see Hikaru actually preempting any sacrifices on h6 by dropping the bishop back. Perhaps the knight that doesn't have a good home on b8 will find its way on c5.
Well, definitely knight b d7 will be the next move, I believe, because bishop b6 can be
it's a bit annoying,
unpleasant.
Right?
Yeah, he's pausing here, Hikaru, like you say, just develop the piece. Maybe he's also thinking about whether to, at some point, move the king across and just evict this knight from the square. Judith, Jovanka and I, we started this rhyme. A knight on f5 will thrive, and here, the knight on f5, the most important piece. If you kick it back, I think black is okay.
Well, of course, king h7 and g6 is a very sensible idea to kick out the f5 knight, but sometimes people are not worried that much about the f5 knight. It's more for the eye than it's in reality. Some really big harm can be done. The question is whether can white go g4 and g5, for example. It's especially blitz game kind of moves that you can go on the nerves of your opponent and show that you have some great ideas. and stabilize the knight on f5, and it's not really opening too much the king side for the white. So I'm a big g4 fan, so I would definitely probably try out at some point.
You predicted it, Judith.
G4.
It's on the board. Big attack incoming for white. Risky because white's king is open. You lose control over some key squares later on, but we love to see it. I was about to say as well, it's Alireza's style to attack. I think when he goes for slower maneuvering games, he's less strong. So yes, he's had to drop back with his knight on f5, but the pawn is going to step forward even further. Line's about to become open around the black king.
Well, I'm worried a little bit for white with if black can go reach to d3 with the knight and even double bishop rook d7, rook d8. Also, queen exchange offer is something very unpleasant for white. So let's see. But can't white take a pawn with bishop c5 exchange and then take on e5?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, tactics are about to happen. I think he might go for that, Judith. The evaluation bar doesn't react, so we see it's still probably fine for black, but Hikaru must have had to do some calculation when going for this variation. If you don't take this knight first, if you first capture on e5, then later after a queen trade, the white e4 pawn will drop. So yeah, it looks like if you want to win this game, this is what you have to go for.
Well, I think black is going to capture back somehow, gaining the e4 pawn, so it's going to be open file d5 and e5. Knight e5 is another way. He wanted to keep his bishop, which is also understandable. He wants to have his bishop on b6, or potentially, eventually. It's roughly an equal position, I believe. And g4 is not doing any harm to white in an endgame at all.
Yeah, actually, it's quite nice to have this square for your king. It's quite nice to kind of clamp down on black's pawns on dart squares. Watch out for any endgame favoring white if it just comes